I just wonder what the feeling is like. Everyone who's joined us today talks about the anger that's being felt today on Capitol Hill. Is that what you're feeling?
Yeah, as I received the news yesterday that Charlie Kirk had been shot and killed, it was both a moment where my heart sunk, but also a frustration of this type of political violence. President Trump was shot last summer at a political rally, and then you have Charlie Kirk shot and killed today. And so it's a frustration, but it is also a really sober moment, I think, for a lot of us that knew or interacted with him. He was just such a leader in the conservative movement, inspiring people to stand up and have the courage to stand up for their convictions, in particular on college campuses where he was when his life was ultimately taken.
Well, you know, it's interesting because we talk here on TV and radio. People listen to our conversations. They see you in committee hearings. I've seen you in a hearing room working with Democrats. I've also seen you in the wild at events that take place in Washington, fundraisers and other things that go on here after hours. Congressman, I've seen you interact with people on the other side of the aisle with ease. And part of the conversation that we've been having here on the program, Mike Rounds brought it up, is the disconnect that a lot of people have with Washington, assuming that you're enemies with every Democrat up there. The fact of the matter is you guys work out together, you go out to eat together. It's part of the fabric of this legislative body. And I wonder if we need to talk about that more.
We need to accept that there should be robust debates on policies. But that doesn't mean you need to be disagreeable as a person, right? You can disagree on the underlying policy. And what we have seen is the rhetoric build, in particular, some of the rhetoric against President Trump, I think, has unquestionably crossed the line, a threat to democracy. People have called him a Nazi, et cetera. And it's that type of rhetoric that I think is really dangerous at a period of time where there are individuals who can be encouraged by others to act in a manner, and in particular to take the life of another. We're going to learn more about the criminal that I hope is apprehended and is held to the full extent of the law responsible. But I do think that we see a lot of people playing a dangerous rhetorical game, and we saw the assassination attempt of Trump, and now we saw the killing of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, there's a lot of dangerous rhetoric out there. And by the way, I've never heard you engage in any of it. But, you know, ask Nancy Pelosi, who Donald Trump also referred to as an evil person. He's called those of us in the media the enemy of the American people. Is that where we need to get to, Congressman? Is it the language that's driving this, or is it more complicated than that?
Well, it's not as simple as just the language, but I do think that there is an element that is trying to incite individuals to act. And again, I don't think it's lost on us that President Trump was shot at and then Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. And again, if we think about what Charlie Kirk was actually doing, he was actually having a policy debate on a college campus. That is actually really core to our democracy. We should be having those types of robust policy debates. And this action where his life was taken is not only frustrating, but it causes a lot of kind of that anger. And you got to look and say, we need to make sure that there is no place for this type of political violence anywhere in our country.
You heard what the speaker said in that cut that we played from CNN, that there's a desire, he said, on many people's parts to have more security, that these are the new realities. You chair the admin committee and you're intimately familiar with this idea. Congressman, every time somebody gets hurt or threatened or a horrible fatality like this in the political world, it renews the conversation in Washington about whether members like yourself should have security details, or maybe there's another way to secure those who serve in the Capitol. But you also have to go home to the district, and I wonder if it's time to address this new reality.
It was just a couple months ago, following the horrific incident in Minnesota, that we implemented new programs here to provide additional security for members, for staff, and the public at large. But it shouldn't be lost that you can't simply secure your way out of the challenges that we face right now. Again, I'll go back to the President Trump assassination attempt. He had the protection of Secret Service. And so it's not simply security. We do need security. We need to make sure that we're providing that to members, to staff, and to the general public. But there's something deeper going on in our society as well that we have to address.
Well, that's absolutely right. I just wonder with the enhancements that you made, though, or do you feel they're adequate now, or do you go back to the drawing board after this?
We're continuing to look to make sure that we have the resources that are needed to keep everyone safe here, not only in Washington, D.C., but when they're home in my home state of Wisconsin or across the country. And so we're constantly looking and reviewing our programs, making sure that we're being wise with taxpayer dollars, but to provide that security. And again, it's not just for elected leaders or for public figures. It's also to keep the public safe. The individual who would ultimately lose their life at the president's rally in Pennsylvania was a father who came to attend in his support of President Trump. And so a lot of the security protocols that are in place are not just for the benefit of an elected member or a public figure, but it's the public at large to make sure that these types of events and discourse and conversations are safe for everyone to attend.
Well, yeah, this is a great point that you make. We're spending time with Congressman Bryan Steil of Wisconsin, who chairs the Administration Committee. Just learning from the Associated Press, Congressman, that Charlie Kirk's casket will be flown from Utah to Arizona aboard Air Force Two today. Of course, as we just reported, Vice President J.D. Vance changed his plans to go to Utah to meet with the Kirk family. You know, one of the terrible side effects that we could be talking about here, Congressman, is another conversation you're familiar with. It leads fewer people to want to serve. Do you worry that fewer hands will be raised to run for Congress because of events like this?
Well, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to find individuals of high quality who are interested in stepping up to serve our country. That's true on local school boards. That's true in state houses across the country, and it's true in Capitol Hill as well. It's a challenge. And some of this, right, is the broader challenge that we're having right now as a society to learn how to have a discourse and dialogue with each other about the challenges that we face. I mean, I held a town hall in Wisconsin, and a group, not the whole group, but a group of activist protesters booed the Pledge of Allegiance, to give you a little flavor of how the event started. And so I think there's a moment where we need to be able to reflect and to say we need to have much more productive dialogues about the policies we need to get this country back on track. And we see time and again really hostile rhetoric, in particular hostile rhetoric directed at President Trump, that I think is not only unproductive, but can also be dangerous.
I don't know if you were on the floor when things got hot yesterday, Congressman. I was just reading about this, emotions boiling over as Representative Lauren Boebert yelled, "Silent prayers get silent results," after a moment of silence. Democrats shouted back about the school shooting in her state. Does that represent the tone up there right now?
I think it represents that there's a lot of raw emotion around the events that we're seeing take place. Like I said, when I received the news, my heart sunk. I was also frustrated as I learned that Charlie Kirk had been shot and killed. I don't think the yelling back and forth is uniquely productive, but what I think we need to do is to sit down and say, how do we have a far more productive conversation? Because there are huge challenges our country faces. We were looking at a spending lapse at the end of the month. National defense is a massive priority with kinetic wars taking place across the globe. And so these are real serious policy challenges, and that we need to engage in that productive dialogue to find solutions. And the incident that took place in Utah is, I think, an example of how some people are reacting rather than engaging in productive dialogue, which is what this country so desperately needs.
Well, I appreciate this conversation, and I wonder if you think this is a Congress that can be productive enough to generate a spending plan, either a continuing resolution or some other form to avoid a government shutdown at the end of this month, Congressman. Can we compartmentalize this enough right now to do something good?
Well, we're going to have to. I think it's imperative that we navigate this to make sure that we keep the government open. If we get into that policy side of that, I think there's a lot of false rhetoric going on right now on the left about the spending debate, in particular on the rescission packages that went through. That's no excuse to shut down the federal government. In fact, that received a majority vote in the House, and the Senate was signed into law. We should be looking at ways to save money for the American people at a period of time when the debt and deficit is higher. But pulling us together to make sure that we avoid a shutdown at the end of the month is going to be absolutely essential.
Does the extension of Obamacare tax credits help to pave the way, or has that been shelved for now? This was being discussed as at least a point of negotiation with Democrats.
Well, I think there's a lot of things on the table right now, but at a period of time with massive spending, with our debt increasing, I think we should be looking at ways to reduce spending here in Washington. And so the Biden administration put this sunset in place. Why they did that, you can go ask the Democrats why they built the law as they did. But we have an opportunity and a need to make sure that we keep government funding open. At the end of the month, there's going to be a lot of conversations about what it will take in the United States Senate to get 7 Democrats to come on to this legislation. But it would be negative for the American people if we find ourselves in a shutdown because they refuse to keep the government open.